Wesley was 37 years old, a pediatric surgery fellow at the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic, earning a respectable but grueling $128,000 a year. He believed in slow, steady work. He believed in things that were earned. And as he sat on the edge of a $12,000 king-sized bed in a 4,500 a night suite at the Ritz-Carlton, the morning sun of a new day, the first day of his marriage, streaming through the panoramic windows overlooking Public Square, he was confronted with something that felt profoundly unearned. His wife of less than 12 hours, Selena, stood before him, a vision in a $600 white silk robe, her deep brown skin luminous against the fabric. In her hand, she held a single, professionally laminated sheet of paper. She hadn't said good morning. She hadn't kissed him. She had simply waited for his eyes to open, and then she had presented the document. "I think it's important we start our marriage with absolute clarity," she said, her voice smooth and practiced, entirely devoid of the warmth from the night before. "These are my expectations. I consider them non-negotiable." Wesley took the paper. The laminate was cool and rigid in his hands, a stark contrast to the soft, rumpled linen sheets. At the top, in a crisp serif font, were the words, "Our marriage, expectations, and framework." Below, 10 numbered points laid out a future he had never agreed to, a life that felt alien and transactional. He felt a familiar coldness spread through his chest, the same precise, controlled calm he felt just before making the first incision on a tiny, fragile heart. He had been expecting something like this. He had been dreading it, preparing for it, and hoping he was wrong. But seeing it in print, laminated like a corporate mission statement, was a special kind of devastation. Have you ever had a moment where the future you imagined dissolves right in front of your eyes? Let us know in the comments if you've ever faced a betrayal that changed everything. And stick with us to see how one man's quiet strength turned the tables on a devastating set of demands. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of curated perfection, and in retrospect, Wesley saw every moment as a carefully placed stone leading to this very hotel room. They met at the Cleveland Clinic's annual fundraising gala. Wesley was there out of obligation, feeling out of place in his rented $350 tuxedo, sipping a glass of complimentary sparkling wine. He was a man of quiet habits and practical possessions. His most prized asset was his paid-off 2018 Honda Accord, a car with 78,000 miles that had never once failed him. His world was one of sterile operating rooms, beeping monitors, and the profound, humbling responsibility of holding a child's life in his hands. Then, Selena had appeared at his elbow, a radiant smile on her face. She wore a shimmering emerald green Burberry dress that he would later learn cost $2,400. She moved with an effortless grace, her long, elegant braids adorned with subtle gold cuffs that caught the light. She introduced herself as a brand strategist and marketing consultant, a title that was as impressive as it was vague. She had a way of making him feel seen, drawing him out about his work, her eyes wide, with what he mistook for genuine admiration. "Saving children," she'd murmured, placing a hand on his arm. "That's the work of a king." Their dates were always at her suggestion, and they were always expensive. Dinner at Marble Room Steaks, where the bill easily topped $400. Cocktails at Society Lounge, where a single drink cost more than his lunch for a week. He would pay, of course, drawing from the savings he was meticulously building. He was a fellow on the final leg of a brutal decade of training. His salary was temporary. The real earning potential was still a few years away, a fact Selena seemed keenly, almost academically aware of. "Just imagine, Wes," she'd say, looking out from the rooftop bar at the Nine, "when you're an attending surgeon. This whole city will be ours." He lived in a modest, but solid, three-story townhouse in Ohio City, a property he'd purchased 5 years earlier for $450,000 with a down payment he had saved since his residency. It was his anchor, a testament to his belief in ownership and stability. The furniture was simple, functional pieces from West Elm and IKEA, totaling no more than $8,000. He had a small garden in the back, where he grew tomatoes and herbs. It was his sanctuary. Selena called it charming and a perfect starter home. The first real crack in the facade appeared 3 months into their relationship. Selena's sister Amaya came over for dinner. Amaya was older, sharper, with an undisguised air of calculation. While Selena was preparing her signature, and admittedly delicious, shrimp scampi in the kitchen, Wesley stepped into the hallway to take a call from the hospital. He finished quickly and was walking back when he heard Amaya's voice, a low, urgent hiss from the kitchen. "He seems nice, but is he serious? A surgeon's salary is no joke, Seeley. You need to lock that down. Get your name on that house before you even think about a ring." Wesley stopped, hidden by the turn in the hall. He heard Selena's soft reply, a musical laugh that didn't quite cover the complicity. "I'm working on it, Maya. He's careful. He's not like the others." The words landed like ice chips in his gut. Lock that down. Get your name on that house. He's not like the others. He wasn't a person to them. He was a project, a financial plan. He quietly backed away, returning to the living room and picking up a medical journal, his hands trembling slightly. When they came out of the kitchen smiling, he smiled back. But something inside him had shifted. A quiet alarm had been tripped. The pressure escalated from there, veiled in the language of love and commitment. The true outrage accumulated not in loud arguments, but in quiet, presumptuous conversations, where his life was discussed as if it were a corporate asset under new management. A month after he overheard Amaya, Selena arranged a dinner with her parents at their sprawling home in Hunting Valley, a suburb of Cleveland, synonymous with old money and sprawling estates. Her father, a retired executive, wore a $3,000 Xenia suit and a gold Rolex worth more than Wesley's car. Her mother was draped in a cashmere shawl that probably cost $1 ounce to $500. They sat in a formal dining room under a crystal chandelier. After exchanging pleasantries, her father, Harold, leaned forward, swirling a glass of what he announced was a $300 bottle of Cabernet. "Wesley," he began, his tone avuncular but firm, "Selena tells us things are getting serious. We're thrilled. Now, as you build a life together, it's vital to merge your paths completely. For instance, a man of your standing, with your future, should show his commitment. Adding Selena to the title of your house, your investment accounts, it's a sign of true partnership." Selena's mother, Clarice, chimed in, her voice a gentle but insistent hum. "Of course. What's his is yours now, sweetie. A husband provides, and he protects his wife's future. It's the right thing to do." Wesley looked at Selena. She was gazing at him with wide, hopeful eyes, a silent plea for him to agree, to validate her family's assessment of his duties. He saw the whole play laid out before him. It was a coordinated familial press. They weren't asking, they were instructing. He felt like a specimen under a microscope, his finances and future being dissected and allocated by people he barely knew. He managed a non-committal smile. "Of course, Harold, we have a lot to discuss about our future," he said, the words feeling like ash in his mouth. He was not just dating Selena, he was being interviewed by her entire board of directors. The final straw was the wedding planning. Wesley had envisioned a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family, followed by a down payment on a shared future. Selena had other plans. She produced a binder filled with clippings from luxury bridal magazines. Her vision involved a guest list of 300, a ballroom at the Tudor Arms Hotel, a 10-piece band, and a custom-designed gown. The preliminary budget she presented was a staggering $150,000. "Selena, this is more than I make in a year," he said, staring at the spreadsheets she'd prepared. "We can't afford this." "We can't afford not to, Wes," she countered, her voice taking on a hard edge. "This isn't just a party. It's an announcement. It's about our social standing. The people we invite will be your future patients, my future clients. It's an investment." "An investment? Selena, I have $90,000 in savings. I've been building that my entire adult life. This would wipe it out for one day." Her eyes filled with tears, a tactic he was beginning to recognize as a strategic maneuver. "So you don't think I'm worth it? You don't think we're worth it? I just want one perfect day to celebrate our love, and you're putting a price tag on it." The argument went on for weeks. He felt cornered, his fiscal prudence reframed as a lack of love. Every objection was met with emotional blackmail. In the end, exhausted and wanting to believe her tears were real, he compromised. They agreed on a budget of $80,000. He paid for over $65,000 of it from his savings, the account he had so carefully nurtured now gutted for floral arrangements and ice sculptures. He watched the number in his bank account dwindle and felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the money, but for the shared dream of building something practical and real. He was funding a performance, and he was starting to feel like the only one who didn't have a copy of the script. The day after he wrote the final check to the wedding planner, a knot of cold dread tightening in his stomach, he knew he couldn't proceed without a safety net. He had to hope for the best, but he had to prepare for the worst. The following Tuesday at 11 a.m., Wesley walked into the lobby of the Terminal Tower in downtown Cleveland. The grand, opulent space felt like a cathedral to commerce and power. He took the elevator to the 35th floor, to the law offices of Jenkins and Associates. He had found Ms. Carol Jenkins through a referral from a trusted senior surgeon at the clinic. She was known for being discreet, sharp, and fiercely protective of her clients' assets. Ms. Jenkins was a commanding black woman in her late 50s with her hair in elegant silver locks and a gaze that seemed to see right through him. Her office wasn't flashy, it was functional, with shelves of law books and a simple oak desk. The only personal touch was a framed photo of her with her two grown sons. She listened intently as Wesley, in a calm, measured voice, explained the situation. He didn't editorialize or complain. He simply stated the facts, the comments from Amaya, the dinner with her parents, the pressure over the wedding budget. "So, you're getting married in 2 months, and you're worried she's marrying your future salary, not you," she summarized, her pen tapping softly on a yellow legal pad. Her fee was $200 an hour, and every second felt worth it. "I hope I'm wrong," Wesley said quietly. "I want to be wrong. But I can't go into this unprotected. My townhouse, my pension. I've worked for 15 years for that. It's all I have." "Hope is not a legal strategy, Doctor," Ms. Jenkins said, her voice kind but firm. "Preparation is. Ohio is not a community property state, but things can get messy quickly after a marriage. Let's be clear about what is yours and yours alone." For the next 2 hours, they worked. Wesley had brought a file with him. He produced the deed to his Ohio City townhouse, clearly showing the purchase date 5 years prior. He had statements from his Cleveland Clinic 401k, documenting the current balance of $2,450, all accrued before the marriage. He had statements from his personal savings and investment accounts. Ms. Jenkins' paralegal made certified copies of everything. She advised him to keep his primary income flowing into a separate account and to only use a new joint account for shared household expenses, funded with a specific, traceable amount each month. Do not, under any circumstances, add her name to the deed of your house, she warned. That's considered a gift to the marriage, and it becomes marital property. Don't commingle your premarital savings. Keep everything separate and documented. He paid her a $2,500 retainer. She provided him with a secure digital folder where he could upload any relevant communications, texts, emails, anything that felt like pressure or a demand. Think of it as an insurance policy, she told him as he prepared to leave. You buy it hoping you'll never need it. But if the house catches fire, you'll be glad you have it. Wesley walked out of the terminal tower into the Cleveland sunshine feeling lighter, but also sadder. The romance was gone, replaced by risk mitigation. He was going through with the wedding, putting on a brave face and a loving smile, all while a fireproof folder containing his legal defense sat in the back of his closet. He was walking down the aisle toward a woman he loved, but also toward a woman he was actively preparing to divorce. They had no idea what was coming. Back in the Ritz-Carlton suite, the silence stretched, thick with Selena's unspoken expectation. It was 9:21 a.m. on the first day of their new life. Wesley's eyes scanned the 10 points on the laminated sheet, each one a nail in the coffin of the marriage he had hoped for. 1. All income from both parties to be deposited into a new joint checking account. All existing personal accounts to be closed. This was a complete financial takeover. 2. Selena to be added as a joint owner on the deed of the 1985 Ohio City property within 30 days of marriage. The house. Amaya's words echoed in his head. 3. A non-negotiable personal allowance of $5,000 per month for Selena for personal upkeep, clothing, beauty, wellness. This was more than his monthly mortgage payment. 4. Wesley's work hours at the Cleveland Clinic are not to exceed 60 per week to ensure prioritization of the relationship. An impossible demand for a surgical fellow. It was a demand for him to compromise his career. 5. 2 international vacations per year, Europe, Asia, business class flights required. Minimum budget, $20,000 per trip. A $40,000 annual expenditure on travel alone. 6. Selena's mother, Clarice, will be invited to move into the primary residence within 5 years to assist with future children. His home was now a future multi-generational family compound for her family. 7. All major financial decisions, any expenditure over $1,000, require Selena's explicit written approval. He would need permission to buy a new laptop. 8. Wesley will provide seed funding of $100,000 for Selena's new lifestyle brand startup, Celie Luxe, within the first year. This was more than what was left of his life savings. 9. The Ohio City property will be sold within 2 years to facilitate the purchase of a new family home in Hunting Valley. Minimum value $1.5 million. His sanctuary was merely a stepping stone. 10. These terms are foundational to the marriage and are not subject to negotiation. The final authoritarian seal. He read the list twice, his surgeon's mind dissecting it, noting the precision of the language, the lack of any ambiguity. This wasn't a list of hopes or dreams. It was a contract, a hostile takeover bid for his life. He could feel her watching him, her posture confident, her expression expectant, as if she were waiting for him to sign on the dotted line. The air in the expensive room was heavy with the scent of day-old champagne and wilting gardenias from her bouquet. Outside, the city of Cleveland was waking up, but in this room, a marriage was dying before it had even begun. He folded the paper neatly in half, the crisp laminate resisting, and placed it on the polished wood of the nightstand. He felt nothing but a profound, chilling clarity. The time for hope was over. The time for strategy had begun. It was 9:25 a.m. Wesley turned his head slowly and looked directly at his wife. His face was a placid mask. The turmoil inside was perfectly contained. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind, but he had hoped it would never come. Selena's smile was bright, confident. She believed she had won. She had presented her terms from a position of power, the morning after their wedding, a time when a man was supposed to be wrapped in a haze of love and happiness. She had made a critical mistake. She had mistaken his kindness for weakness. "I've read your expectations, Selena," he said, his voice quiet and even, cutting through the silence of the room. "They're very thorough." She preened slightly. "Clarity is kindness, Wes. I want us to be on the same page from day one." "I understand," he nodded. "I have only one rule in return, just one. You can talk to me about any issue. We can argue about money, about the house, about my hours. We can disagree on anything. But the moment you weaponize your family against me, the moment you bring your sister or your mother or your father into our marriage to pressure me, to gang up on me, or to mediate our disagreements, I will file for divorce. Immediately. That is my only non-negotiable." The confident smile on Selena's face didn't just fade, it collapsed. Her radiant, deep brown skin seemed to lose its light, her face going pale under her warm complexion. Her eyes darted to the side, a flicker of pure, unadulterated panic. It was a micro-expression, lasting less than a second, but to Wesley's trained eyes, it was as clear as a cardiac ultrasound. He saw it all: the shock, the fear, the sudden, horrifying realization that her entire strategy had just been preempted. Her hand, which had been resting gracefully on her hip, twitched. He followed her panicked gaze and saw where it landed, on her $1,400 iPhone 14 Pro, sitting on the nightstand next to his cheap $89 Timex watch. He knew with absolute certainty that her phone was filled with text messages from Amaya. He could practically read them in his mind. Give it to him in the morning. He'll be too happy to say no. If he pushes back, tell him Mom and Dad will have a talk with him. We've got your back. He won't stand a chance against all of us. Her entire plan, the one she and her family had so carefully constructed, relied on their collective force, and in one calm, quiet sentence, he had dismantled it. He had named the tactic and attached the ultimate consequence to it. The game she was playing was over before it began. My family just wants what's best for me," she stammered, her voice losing its silky confidence. "I'm sure they do," Wesley replied, his tone unchanging. "But I didn't marry them. I married you. Our problems are ours to solve. That's my one and only rule." He stood up, walked to the closet, and began to pack his overnight bag. The test had begun. The 6 months that followed were a masterclass in strategic restraint. Wesley never mentioned the laminated list again. He filed it away in the same fireproof box with his legal documents. He played the part of a newlywed husband, feigning ignorance while observing every move Selena made. It was a cold, tense period, a domestic chess match where he knew her strategy and she was forced to improvise, constantly testing his boundaries. The outrage was a low, constant hum beneath the surface of their daily lives. The first test came 2 weeks after the wedding. They were in the kitchen of his townhouse, the evening light filtering through the window over the sink. Selena brought up the joint bank account. "Honey, we really need to merge our finances like we talked about," she said, her tone light and casual. "It's the first step to building our life together." Wesley didn't look up from chopping vegetables for dinner. "You're right," he said agreeably. "I'll open a new joint account this weekend. We can use it for all the household bills. I'll set up a direct deposit of $3,000 a month to cover everything." Her chopping slowed. "3,000? Wes, my list said all our income." "This is a good first step," he repeated calmly, offering no further explanation. He saw the frustration tighten her jaw. He knew that $3,000 was enough for the mortgage, utilities, and groceries, but it was nowhere near enough to fund the lifestyle she envisioned. The next day, he opened the account as promised, but his main salary continued to flow, untouched, into his personal account at a separate bank. He uploaded the new account statement to the secure folder Ms. Jenkins had provided. A month later, it was the house. "Have you had a chance to call a lawyer about adding my name to the deed?" she asked as they were getting ready for bed. "It would make me feel so much more secure." "I'm looking into the tax implications," he lied smoothly. "With the property value increase, it might trigger a gift tax. It's complicated. I want to make sure we do it the right way." He made a note of the date and time of her request, a small entry in a growing log he kept on his phone. Each lie was a scene, a piece of evidence. He was building a wall of reasonable delays, brick by brick. The personal allowance was the most contentious issue. She brought it up at the end of the first month. "So about my allowance," she started, a demanding edge to her voice. He handed her a new credit card. "I had this made for you," he said. "It has a $1,500 limit. You can use it for any household incidentals or personal things you need." Her face was a mask of disbelief. "500? The agreement was for $5,000? In cash? How am I supposed to maintain my appearance with this?" "I think 500 is a very generous starting point for a household with our budget," he replied, his voice gentle but firm. "My salary is public record, Selena. You know what I make. Your demands are based on my future potential, not our current reality." Her anger flared. "This is insulting. This is not what I signed up for." She stormed out of the room. A few moments later, he heard the muffled, furious tones of her voice from the bedroom. He didn't need to hear the words to know she was on the phone with Amaya, reporting his non-compliance. He logged the incident, the time, and her exact words. He was living a double life, the calm, accommodating husband on the surface, and the meticulous, evidence-gathering strategist underneath. He was dying inside, the love he'd once felt curdling into a grim resolve. But he had made a rule, and he was waiting to see if she would be foolish enough to break it. The final fatal move came 6 months and 2 weeks after their wedding. It was a Thursday evening in late April, the Cleveland sky a dismal, rainy gray. Wesley walked through the door of his home at 7:12 p.m. He was bone-tired. He had just come from a grueling 14-hour shift that included a complex 7-hour surgery on a newborn's heart. All he wanted was a hot shower and a quiet meal. He dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and walked into the living room. And there they were, the intervention. Selena was sitting on their $4,000 crate and barrel sofa, her posture rigid. On either side of her, like two sentinels, sat her sister, Amaya, and her mother, Clarice. The air was thick with a heavy confrontational energy. It was the moment he knew would come. Amaya spoke first, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Wesley, we need to talk. You need to sit down." Wesley remained standing in the entryway, his hospital scrubs feeling like a suit of armor. He didn't move. He simply looked at them, his gaze calm and steady. "Selena is unhappy," Amaya continued, taking his silence as an invitation to press on. "You're not respecting the agreement you made. You're stonewalling her on the finances, on the house. You're not being a partner. You're not being a husband." Clarice leaned forward, her face a mask of disappointment. "A man provides for his wife, Wesley. He makes her feel secure. You are failing in your duties. This is not how we raised our daughter to be treated. She deserves the life you promised her." Wesley's eyes moved from Amaya's furious face to Clarice's condescending one. But his focus was on Selena. She sat between them, a silent, martyred figure, letting her family fight her battle for her. She was a willing participant in this ambush. This was the weaponization he had explicitly forbidden. This was the breaking of his one simple rule. He felt no anger, no surprise. He only felt a profound, cold clarity. The end had arrived. He looked directly at his wife, ignoring the other two women completely. "Is this what you want, Selena?" he asked, his voice low and devoid of emotion. "For them to be here, in my house, saying these things to me?" A small, smug smile touched the corners of Selena's lips. She thought this was her victory, the moment he would finally break under their combined pressure. She nodded. "They're just trying to help you understand your responsibilities," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Sometimes a man just needs to hear it from others." He had his answer. He had the confirmation he needed. He had given her every chance to solve their problems with him, and she had chosen this. She had chosen to bring her army to his door. He didn't say another word. He didn't argue or defend himself. He simply held her gaze for a long moment, letting the silence hang in the air. Then he turned around, walked out the front door, and closed it softly behind him. He heard Amaya start to yell his name from inside, but he didn't stop. He walked to his reliable Honda, got in, and started the engine. As he pulled away from the curb, he took out his phone. He sent one text message to Selena. "You have broken my one rule. I will be filing for divorce in the morning. My lawyer will be in touch. Please arrange to have your things out of my house by the end of the weekend." He then sent a second text to Miss Carol Jenkins. "It happened. Please file tomorrow morning." He put the phone down, turned onto the highway, and drove toward the anonymous comfort of a downtown hotel, the rain washing over his windshield, cleansing the last 6 months away. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Selena. Her world, built on a foundation of future expectations, collapsed in a matter of hours. The first wave was a flurry of frantic messages. Wesley sat in a sterile room at the downtown Marriott, a room he paid for with his own credit card for $289, and watched his phone light up. 8:05 p.m. Selena. "Where are you going? You can't just walk out." 8:07 p.m. Selena. "Wesley, this is ridiculous. Come back and talk to us like an adult." 8:15 p.m. Amaya. "You are a coward. You will regret this. You have no idea who you're messing with." 8:30 p.m. Voicemail from Selena. "Wes, baby, come back, please. We can talk. Just us. They'll leave. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Just come home." Her voice was pleading, the condescension replaced with rising panic. 9 p.m. Voicemail from Selena. A string of sobs. "You can't do this. We just got married. You're destroying my life. You're destroying our life." He listened to them all, dispassionately, as if reviewing a patient's chart. He saved the voicemails and forwarded the threatening text from Amaya to the secure digital folder. He ate a club sandwich he ordered from room service for $28 and went to sleep. The next morning at 8 a.m. sharp, Wesley was sitting in Ms. Jenkins' office. She had the paperwork ready. The petition for dissolution of marriage was filed with the Cuyahoga County Courthouse by 9:30 a.m. Because the marriage was less than a year old and Wesley had such meticulous premarital documentation, the legal proceedings were brutally efficient. A process server delivered the divorce papers to Selena at the Ohio City townhouse that afternoon. The legal language was cold and final. She was entitled to nothing. The townhouse was his premarital property. His 401k was his premarital property. His savings were his premarital property. Under Ohio law, she had no claim to any of it. The $80,000 wedding, which he had largely paid for, was considered a gift, with no legal recourse for him to recover the funds, a sunk cost he had already made peace with. The consequences cascaded. Forced to vacate the home she had already mentally redecorated, Selena moved back into her old, cramped, $1,200 a month one-bedroom apartment in Tremont. The white BMW 3 Series, which she had leased in her own name with the expectation of Wesley's income covering the $650 monthly payment, became an impossible burden. After 2 missed payments, it was repossessed, a final humiliation played out in the parking lot of her apartment building for all her neighbors to see. Her credit score plummeted. Her social standing evaporated. The story of the 6-month marriage and the infamous 10-point list, which Ms. Jenkins' paralegal had subtly but legally leaked to a few key people in their social circle in response to Amaya's slanders, spread like wildfire. The friends who had envied her catch now saw her as a failed gold digger. Invitations to parties dried up. Her vague brand strategist career, which relied entirely on social connections and a projected image of success, stalled. With no access to Wesley's money, the designer clothes and expensive dinners were gone. The illusion she had so carefully crafted was shattered, revealing the empty reality beneath. The family she had used as a weapon turned on her, blaming her for misplaying her hand and fumbling a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Her relationship with Amaya, her chief strategist, became toxic and filled with resentment. Selena was left with nothing but the debts she had accrued and the ashes of her grand ambitions. 2 years passed. It was a bright, cloudless Saturday in June. The sun glinted off the vast blue expanse of Lake Erie. Wesley, now 39, was no longer a fellow. He was a full-fledged attending pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic. His starting salary was $450,000 a year, a number that once seemed like a target on his back, but now felt simply like the quiet, deserved result of 2 decades of relentless work and sacrifice. He was walking along the paved path at Edgewater Park, a gentle breeze coming off the water. He was wearing a simple gray t-shirt, running shorts, and a pair of $120 Brooks running shoes. Beside him walked a young man named Marcus, a first-year surgical fellow, his face a mixture of awe and exhaustion. Wesley had started a mentorship program for young black surgeons at the clinic, helping them navigate the demanding, often isolating world of academic medicine. The key, Wesley was saying, his voice calm and encouraging, is to never lose sight of why you started. On the nights when you're on call for 36 hours and you haven't seen the sun, you have to remember the feel of that first time you held a heart in your hands. You have to remember the face of the parents when you tell them their child is going to be okay. He felt a deep sense of peace, a contentment that was richer than any luxury item he could ever purchase. His Ohio City townhouse, now worth over $550,000, was still his sanctuary. His retirement account had grown to over $350,000. He had rebuilt his savings, and then some. He had his work, his mentees, his simple garden. He had his freedom. He sometimes saw Selena's profile on social media. She was still in Cleveland, still trying to project an image of a glamorous life, posting photos from trendy restaurants she probably couldn't afford, always with a new man who looked vaguely uncomfortable. He felt no anger, no resentment. He just felt a quiet, distant pity for a woman who had never understood the difference between value and price. The real product of our lives isn't what we can take from others, but what we build within ourselves. True wealth is not a number in a bank account, but the strength of your character, the peace in your heart, and the integrity of the boundaries you draw to protect them. It's about knowing your own worth so completely that you can walk away from anything that seeks to diminish it. Wesley had learned that lesson in the most painful way, but it had made him whole. His one rule hadn't just been a condition for his marriage, it had been a declaration of his own self-worth, and by honoring it, he hadn't just saved his assets, he had saved himself. What do you think is the most important rule for a successful partnership? Share your thoughts below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to Love Beyond Pride for more stories of strength, self-respect, and the quiet triumph of